I'm Roland Bewley. Let's get started. This is about learning to practice. Practice is actually a skill. You don't just get your horn out and playing some is not necessarily practice. Practice is working towards a goal. When you sit down to practice, you need to have a goal and some ideas about what you want to accomplish when you practice. I mean, it's fun to sit down and play, and of course, I'm not saying don't do that, but that doesn't always necessarily count as practice. Practice, to me at least, is working particularly on things that I'm having trouble with that I want to get better at. So I have some techniques for learning to practice that I think you'll find helpful. The first one is practicing in small sections, little bite-sized pieces. A lot of people like to call it chunks. So the more difficult your music is, or a skill is that you're working on, it's better to reduce it to a smaller amount of music. So this is particularly true for things that are very technical. So the more difficult and technical, say, a piece of music is that you have, rather than practicing 4 bars, you might only need to do 2 bars at a time. Sometimes maybe even only 1, maybe even only half a measure. Just depends on how difficult it is. And you take the pieces, you work up, say, this 2-measure section, and you get that to where you can do it really well. And then you work on the next 2-measure section, you get to where you can do that really well, and you put them together. And I've talked about some of the techniques that I use in some of the other videos, like rhythm positions or rhythm fingers, that you could do that way and then play. So those come in handy for that. And you get those 2 sections worked out separately, then put them together, and then go to the next spot. And in a lot of your music, the whole song isn't that hard. You might only have 2 4-bar sections in a piece of music that are difficult that you need to practice that way, where the rest of it you can pretty much play and you just learn it and get it down. So it just depends on what's difficult, but you always want to focus on where the problem is. Whatever the hardest part is what you want to do. Is that a lot of fun? Probably not. But being good is, and doing a great job on your music is a lot of fun. And those problem places are where you're going to have trouble. So that's where you want to spend most of your time getting that down. The things you can already do well, you can already do well, and they're not going to take as much time. Now, one of the things you want to do when you're breaking that into sections is what I call intelligent repetition. So you want to take, say you have a 2-measure section that's fairly technical, and maybe you use rhythm positions or rhythm fingers to do that, or you're playing it, depends on where you are with it. But you want to get it right and then do it over and over again correctly. And it may take you several times to get it correct. And a lot of people, let's say it takes you 10 times to get it right. Well, there were 9 times you did it wrong. So doing it right once doesn't mean you have it. You've got to get to where you can do it more times correctly in a row. The more times in a row you can do it correctly, the more you have it down, the more you're making it a habit, or what we call muscle memory or reflex. So you want to do it at least 3 times in a row, preferably more, to really get to where you can count on doing it right the first time. And that's one of the reasons why we use shorter pieces of music to do it, or shorter sections to do that, because it's much easier to do that than it is with a whole page. In fact, that's pretty hard. And you put those together. So do your repetition. It's going to take you however many times it takes to get it right, and then you want to work on, being able to play it correctly, and as many times as you can. The more, the better. And it starts to become a habit, because we're creatures of habit. Whatever we do the most, we're going to do automatically, usually. I mean, there can be exceptions, but for the most part, whatever you're used to doing, you're going to do without thinking about it. If you don't believe me, next time you brush your teeth, try using the other hand. See what happens. That's building that muscle memory up. Now, let's say you've got your piece worked up pretty well now. You've taken the pages, you've done it in short sections, you've put them together in longer sections, and you're getting to where you can play the whole piece of music or do it. Then you need to practice running through it, and you have to keep going. You have to keep going. You mess up, you got to keep going. You're not going to stop. You're going to do a run through. I think of it as a run through. Okay, now I'm going to do a run through. That means I think I've got this worked up where I can play it. I'm going to give it a shot and see where I'm at, and then I'm going to keep going no matter what. So I may totally mess up a measure or a section or whatever. I'm going to keep going, and do that whole piece. Now, obviously, I want to go back and work on the spots that I had trouble with, but you have to develop the habit of doing that for your coordination, because when you perform, whether it's live or recording or whatever, you have to keep going. You know, you're not going to stop in a concert and go back and do a section over again, hopefully. But you've got to keep going, and you have to practice that. A lot of people work up their music and work up all these sections and put it together and feel like they have it down really well, and they never run through it. I mean, I personally find this true, and I think this, I'm going to guess it's probably true for most people. One of the reasons you get really nervous when you play through a concert is because often you've never played the piece all the way through without stopping. And that's pretty scary when you go out in front of a bunch of people and the first time you've ever actually played it through continuously without stopping is in front of a big crowd of people. That's not really a situation you want to be in. So you need to practice, you know, running it through by yourself without stopping, especially on a solo or something like that, even your band pieces. And it's a good idea to play it for other people before you ever perform it. You know, play it for your mom, play it for your dad, play it for the dog, play it for your brother, play it for your friends, whatever. So you get some practice playing it in front of somebody and keep going. And the way you do that is the rhythm. Because, you know, everybody messes up, whether other people notice it all the time or not, but everybody makes mistakes. There's really no getting around that. But the real thing that makes you good is your recovery, your ability to recover when you do make a mistake. You know, like if you were an athlete, if you're running a race and you trip and fall down, you're not going to just lie there on the ground. You're going to get up and get running as quick as you can. And in music, we use the rhythm to do that. So you may be playing along and, you know, you miss a note or something. You keep right on playing the rhythm and you keep going. And again, the more you do that, you get more coordinated at your instrument. And your recovery gets quicker and quicker. And a lot of times you may miss something or even better yet, almost miss something, but your reflexes and your coordination are so good that you recover and actually prevent yourself from making a mistake. And nobody but you knows that you almost played that wrong. But your recovery helps to do that. And the only way you can practice that is by running through things and keeping the rhythm going. In fact, that's a good idea generally in playing music. You have to always put the rhythm first, because everything you do in music has to have a rhythm. I have another video that talks about that and putting things in priority and the order that they happen. So those are some useful practice techniques that I hope you find helpful.